that was a lot of movie. Like, there was a lot to unpack there. Whew! I feel tired from that. So, I sometimes have this theory, and I don't know how true it is, but it feels true to me, that at certain points, at certain times, for whatever reason, the internet, and I blame it on the internet, as opposed to the people on it, but let's just say the internet as a massive kind of life form here. The internet decides it doesn't like something. Just out of nowhere. It's like, hi, we don't like this thing anymore. And this could be a thing that either people seem to like at first, or then later, or it just wasn't as popular as others. And so, boy, this thing's bouncing all over the place. Sorry about that. But it just seems like all of a sudden, the internet goes, we don't like this thing anymore. And then everybody jumps on it. And suddenly that thing becomes, the whipping boy. Now, this has been going on in nerd culture for however long nerd culture has been around. A few people decide they don't like something, and the next thing you know, it's the new pariah. And such, it seems to me, has been the case with the Thor franchise. It's the Thor arm of the Marvel Cinematic Universe. That, to me, I've always enjoyed the Thor films. I liked the way they were directed. I liked the way they handled the character. I liked the way they handled the costume design and everything. I've really enjoyed the Thor movies. But it seems like suddenly, or maybe not, the internet has decided it doesn't like the Thor movies. Especially Thor: The Dark World. It didn't like Thor: The Dark World anymore. And so now that's become the whipping boy. We all jump on that and go, Thor: The Dark World was boring and terrible and blah, 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 blah. And, if that was always your opinion, then that's perfectly okay. Nothing wrong with that. That's why we have different opinions. Boy, this thing's bugging the hell out of me. Sorry. That's fine. But for me, I enjoyed Thor: The Dark World. I didn't have a problem with it. I thought it was a good movie. I thought all the Marvel films have been good. There hasn't been one of the movies that I go, oh God, that. Even when they're not as good as some of the others, it's never been a case of, oh, that terrible, terrible movie. I haven't walked out of it like, feeling like I did for, most of the DC movies. I bring this up because while I enjoyed this film, again, I like all the Marvel films, and I enjoyed this addition to the Thor franchise, the one thing that just kind of needles me a little bit, just a tiny bit, not enough to ruin the experience for me, not enough for me not to go, oh, don't go see it, or whatever, is that it feels like this one is one of those films that people make when they're trying to do an overcorrection. They go, oh, the internet didn't like what we did with Thor: The Dark World, didn't like the more Game of Thrones realism we kind of brought to it, so we need to do a complete 180 and do the exact opposite. This film just feels... If I had a criticism for the Thor movies out of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, is that comparatively to the rest of the series and the rest of the individual series that make up the bigger series, it feels like this one suffers the most from a brand identity crisis. And what I mean by that is if you go and watch all the Captain America movies, they all feel the same. They all are shot a little bit the same. With minor differences, the first one being a World War II film and the other two being more spy, Jason Bourne type films. But they all generally look the same or shot the same and whatnot. Same with the Iron Man movies. Same with the two Avengers films that are out there. They all have their own look, their own feel that still combine with the Marvel universe as a whole, but something that gives them their own individual flavor. And again, if I have a criticism of the Thor franchise, it's that it seems to not have that cohesiveness. Because I watched the other two films last night, kind of, getting ready for this, and it's jarring just how different each one of the movies are. And again, I don't think that's necessarily a bad thing, because, again, if you're taking it from the point of view that they're taken from comic books, the comic books over the decades have had different artists, different writers, so the characters all look the same. Each writer has their own feel, each artist has their own feel, so it kind of fits with it being a comic book movie. But cinematically, the three films don't fit together in terms of a cohesive vision or look or thesis statement, it feels like. Again, this one feels like it's going into classic overcorrection territory. It's like, okay, people didn't like the more realistic Game of Thrones feel, so what do they like? Okay, so everybody likes Loki in those films, so let's give Loki a redemption arc in this one. Because everybody likes Loki, so we want to keep him around. Well, no one liked the serious tone. Well, we're going to go the other way. Everybody likes Guardians of the Galaxy, so let's go with the more snarky, comic, self-aware Guardians of the Galaxy look. Everybody also likes the Guardians and their retro kind of feel. Well, let's make this one really, really 80s. Because this movie is really 80s. In its soundtrack choice, especially its soundtrack choices, in its visual style, in the way the special effects are, and like a lot of the special effects, you've seen it in the trailers. That scene where Helena, the goddess of death, is fighting the Valkyries. I mean, it looks like the frickin' cover of a heavy metal album. So the filmmakers clearly just went all out and was like, okay, let's do everything that worked in Guardians and people liked, and let's do that here. And again, for the most part, it's successful. It's a fun movie, and it's, like I say, this is kind of the definition of a popcorn movie, with the colors and the extravagant sets and the vague self-awareness that it is kind of now not so much parodying, but let's say paying homage, that's a nice way of putting it, to 80s sci-fi films, I think helps it keep the mood light and everything kind of bouncing. I talk a lot about the soundtracks on this show. I didn't really kind of mean to start doing that, but yeah, like you notice, like the synthesizer soundtrack is, if it wasn't for the high budget and the connection to the characters and everything, you can almost be excused for thinking this was a very big budget version of like Space Mutiny or something that you'd see on Mystery Science Theater. Everything that worked in the previous films still works. Chris Hemsworth, I think this is his best performance as Thor. Again, I think because they let him lighten up a little bit, so he's not always just this kind of stone-faced, person who's kind of comedic accidentally. They're actually letting him be comedic, and I think it's interesting, and it shows his range as an actor, and I think that's good for him. Tom Hiddleston is great as Loki. As always, Idris Elba. Idris Elba is like the only member of the original cast to survive. Seriously. And that is another thing that kind of bugged me about this. Again, I'm nitpicking a lot here, and I'm not meaning to, because this is generally a positive review. I liked this movie. But I think when reviewing a Marvel film, there's only so much you can say at this stage, because, it's all kind of been said, so you kind of focus on the little things. So anyway, I'm sorry, backtracking. One of the things I had a little bit of a problem of is that, again, having liked the other two Thor movies a lot, they went out of their way to establish a good supporting cast for him. The Warriors 3, Jane Foster, Darcy, which I know people are 50-50 on Kat Dennings and Darcy, and I'm just going to go on record. I like Kat Dennings. I like Darcy. All right? I think she's got Kat Dennings has a really superb and a really natural comic timing. Even on that terrible sitcom of hers, she was funny. So, I feel like they, Kat and Natalie Portman are not in it. The Warriors 3 all get slaughtered. You don't see Lady Sif at all. She's not in it. So this great supporting cast that you were always going, okay, they're going to do more with them in the sequels, never get any payoff. Idris Elba is the only one of the original cast to make it out. And he does. He survives because everybody likes Idris Elba. So anyway, I can't even remember where I was at. I really like the divergence into the kind of the Planet Hulk storyline with Sakaar and the gladiator battles and all that. And I like that we kind of finally get a bit of an extended storyline for Mark Ruffalo and the Hulk. Matt and I were talking about this kind of before I got in the car here, is that ever since these things started, ever since the original Avengers film, people have been going, oh, we need a Black Widow movie, oh, we need a Hulk movie, and I don't think so. I don't want either one of those things. Because I think Black Widow and Hulk, in the iterations that they're in now, I think they work better as supporting characters. And that's fine. There's nothing wrong with being a supporting character. So I don't want to see Mark Ruffalo get his own Hulk movie. I'm more than happy with him doing the bits he does, because then they don't get tired. Then they can be awesome, and they don't have to worry about carrying the weight of a storyline on top of them. So, but I liked. It was good to see Mark Ruffalo get kind of an extended period as the Hulk. That was really cool. Jeff Goldblum's in this, and Jeff Goldblum's performance is the only one that I'm kind of a little on the fence about, because his performance is so self-aware and so tongue-in-cheek that it's one of the things that kind of pulls me out a little bit of it. You could stand the rest of them kind of not taking it as seriously as like The Dark World or anything like that, and just going, balls to the wall 80s action film, or 80s sci-fi film, let's be more specific. And that's great, but he is just so much Jeff Goldblum, and so much Jeff Goldblum in this role, as the Grand Master, the guy who's running Sakaar and is forcing Thor and Hulk to fight. That just, again, you don't really ever get the feel that it sounds stupid to say that he is this guy. It's like, no, that's clearly Jeff Goldblum doing his Jeff Goldblum thing, which again, I like Jeff Goldblum, and I like his Jeff Goldblum thing. I'm one of the few people in the world who isn't tired of it, but I enjoy it. I enjoy the new villain, but as is kind of the tradition with Marvel villains, she gets very little screen time, which again is something I like about the Marvel films, is they're more interested in the hero journey and the story of the characters than they are with just let's give them Heath Ledger as the Joker and have them steal every scene. That was kind of the thing that they had a little problem with the other Thor movies with Loki, is that he stole every scene he was in, and still does. Well, he doesn't do it as much in this time. Again, I think as the tone is shifted this time a little bit more towards what Tom Hiddleston as Loki was doing anyway, that he's not as much of a scene stealer. It's more of a scene sharer now. And I don't mean that in any kind of negative way to Tom Hiddleston. It's just the way the movies were done up until this point. So yeah, but it sounds a lot like I'm coming down on this movie, like I'm really, against it, and I'm not. Like, it was a roller coaster, and there's some great great set pieces and some really fun stuff. I kind of wish that they hadn't ruined the fact that the Hulk was in it in the advertising, because they do this big build up to him as this grand champion who's gonna kill everybody, this grand champion, and and like the minute if you've seen any commercials or the poster or anything, you're like, it's Hulk. it's Hulk. It's Hulk, and so you don't get that kind of visceral yeah, when Hulk shows up. Again, kind of for myself, and I always kind of I look around the audience a little bit. People got more excited when Idris Elba showed up because they all knew the Hulk was going to be there. So, but yeah, the Hulk Thor fights are always really cool, and they outdid themselves here. It was kind of taking what they did in the first Avengers film and cranking it up. So that was really enjoyable. Trying to think of what else to get into here, honestly. Again, if you've been with these films since the beginning, as I have, and most of us have, the odds are you're going to keep going. So you already know if you're going to see this movie, and like me, you're probably going to enjoy it. The only negative thing about these movies is they really don't give you much to talk about anymore. When they first started, you could go, now they're so much the norm that you're like, oh, okay, so that was a good movie. I guess in the grand scheme of things, that's not a bad thing to complain about. That the movies are too good and, they're consistently good, that there's not much to really harp on about too much. I feel like I've spent most of this review kind of talking about the things I didn't like, and I don't want to give the wrong impression, because I did like this movie a lot. I would almost go so far as to say this may be the best comic book movie I've seen all year. And yes, I include Wonder Woman in that. I know I'm going to get death threats because I didn't think Wonder Woman was the greatest thing since sliced bread, but there you are. So yeah, I can't really think of anything else to fill this out. There's nothing. It's good. It's fun. It's everything that the Marvel films should be and have come to be. So odds are you've seen the others. You're gonna see this one, and you're excited as I am for both Black Panther and Avengers Infinity War. I guess the big thing is you got to ask the question of what they're going to do after Infinity War. I know they've still got several franchises, such as the Spider-Man, Doctor Strange, Black Panther. They'll have Captain Marvel, so they'll have kind of some more films to kind of continue on. Ant-Man, they're already doing Ant-Man and Wasp. So, they'll still have some films to kind of go on after Infinity War, but it does kind of raise that question. I wonder how, you do wonder how much longer this is going to go on, because we all kind of know that Infinity War is kind of going to be the curtain call for this first core of Avengers. So probably going to be the last we're going to see, if not in their own movies, and Captain America and Thor and Iron Man. So what are we going to do after Infinity War? But I guess even if that is true, I mean, it's a hell of a ride. So it's been a hell of a journey. So anyway, so that was Thor Ragnarok. A lot of fun, big 80s. It was Reagan-tastic. I hope y'all enjoy it as much as I did. Maybe you'll find less to complain about than I did. And until next time, drive safe, and I will see you at the movies.